Hello, Calvary. Just wanted to share a few thoughts on worship. Um, why is our our gathering together specifically for worship, why is that such an amazing event? Namely, because worship is coming into God's presence. And as we, God's covenant people, via the new birth, Acts 2:38, as we gather to worship, God is present. That is, he manifests his presence so that we encounter him in a special way. Worship is the ultimate privilege and a chief responsibility for believers. That's us. It's no little thing. Hebrews 12:28 and 29, and I will read it in a moment here, defines our approach to the worship of God. An approach that is acceptable in a way that pleases God. And that, of course, worship that is acceptable to God is with our spirit, John 4:23-24, as well as Philippians 3:3. It is with our spirit and not with the flesh or fleshly means and methods. Romans 8:8. The flesh, it cannot please God. Let me read Hebrews 12:28-29 from the English Standard Version. Therefore, let us be grateful for receiving a kingdom that cannot be shaken, and let us offer to God acceptable worship with reverence and awe, for our God is a consuming fire. Three things quickly. Acceptable worship. Number one, worship with gratitude. Gratitude primarily because of who he is, and secondly, what he has done and given us in Jesus Christ. It's stated, a kingdom. We have been given a kingdom that cannot be shaken. And therefore, let us always be thankful to God for the great grace he has shown us. Number two, worship with reverence and awe. The King James translates awe as godly fear. And again, because of who he is. And the writer tells us here, our God is a consuming fire. And that's actually a quote from Deuteronomy 4:24. And it speaks at once to God's awesome power and his right to judge. Furthermore, there is no escape for those who refuse God or who desert the one true living God for idols. And that's in the previous verses of Hebrews 12:25 and 26. And the warning there is very plain. Do not neglect the covenant God has made with you. And number three, worship, and we've mentioned this, is privilege and obligation. To neglect worship is to neglect God. Think about that for a moment. To neglect worship is to neglect God. We must render acceptable, reverential, awe-filled worship because Jesus sits in the midst of our assembling together to worship. He's present. Worship is the acknowledgement of that fact, the fact that he is present. Amen. And so worship, it focuses on him. The wonder of worship is that we are allowed into God's presence in the assembly. The wonder of worship is that we have fellowship with the one God who has revealed himself fully and finally in Jesus Christ. And we are free to approach his throne with the promise of receiving grace. That's Hebrews 4:16. So let's not waste our gathering together. How do you waste a service? How do you waste this gathering together business? How? by failing to worship God acceptably, worshiping him with gratitude, worshiping him with reverence and awe, worshiping him knowing that it is our great privilege and obligation. So Calvary, what an honor we have to worship God. Amen.